All right, let's get to this Oscars controversy. I'm tired of talking about politics, at least for a few minutes. Kevin Hart was named as the host of the Oscars this coming year. And apparently, this was a lifelong dream for Hart. This is something he's been talking about for years. It's something he always wanted to do. When the announcement was first made, his comments were all in and around how excited he was and how honored he was and how he was going to, step up and do an amazing job. He was really excited about it. Then the interwebs happened. Then the social media interwebs happened, and some folks went online and went back 8 and 9 years or so ago and dug up some homophobic, inappropriate tweets and anti-LGBTQ comments he made in a stand-up routine, and got upset. And that's where the trouble began. Kevin Hart was brought to his attention online and by his team, apparently. And he started to respond on social media, including a video message that he sent out yesterday. I want to say this was kind of midday-ish on Instagram. Here's what he had to say.
So I just got a call from the Academy, and that call basically said, Kevin, apologize for your tweets of old, or we're going to have to move on and find another host. Talking about the tweets from 2009, 2010. I chose to pass. I passed on the apology. The reason why I passed is because I've addressed this several times. This is not the first time this has come up. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said where the rights and wrongs were. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it. I've done it. I'm not going to continue to go back and tap into the days of old when I moved on and I'm in a completely different space in my life. The same energy that went into finding those old tweets could be the same energy put into finding the response to the questions that have been asked years after years after years. We feed in the internet trolls and we reward them. I'm not going to do it, man. I'm going to be me. I'm going to stand my ground. Regardless, Academy, I'm thankful and appreciative of the opportunity. If it goes away, no harm, no foul.
All right, listen, I do want to discuss this, but before we do, I want to also play a clip from Sarah Kate Ellis. She's the president and CEO of GLAAD, an LGBTQ activist group, and I think it's important to hear her thoughts as well.
Whenever there are missteps like this or opportunities like this, we see this as an opportunity to get a message out about acceptance for LGBTQ people. And this was a perfect opportunity for that. I mean, in the end, he did apologize. It would have been so much better had he faced it and said, you know what, this wasn't good. And I've evolved from here and I am an ally to the community and I'm going to, move forward and lead. And it wasn't the conclusion that I think everybody would have liked.
So interesting perspective, I think, from her. And I want to talk about both of these perspectives. Also happy to get your perspective on the subject. If you want to give us a call, 404-367-WGST. That's 404-367-9478. You can also comment on our social media. I just posted a link to one of the news stories about this on our Facebook page at facebook.com/TheDanaBarrett. So you can also comment there, and I'll try to keep an eye on it and read your comments as we go through this conversation. But a couple of interesting things to talk about first. And so let's start with Kevin Hart's response. And also, by the way, what the GLAAD president was referring to is that by the end of the day, Kevin Hart had decided on his own to step down and not host the Oscars. And he apologized after that whole Instagram message you just heard. He apologized. And so this was later on. This was sort of late last night. It was around midnight. He tweeted these two tweets. I'll read them to you. I have made the choice to step down from hosting this year's Oscars. This is because I do not want to be a distraction on a night that should be celebrated by so many amazing, talented artists. I sincerely apologize to the LGBTQ community for my insensitive words from my past. He also said, I'm sorry that I hurt people. I am evolving and want to continue to do so. My goal is to bring people together, not tear us apart. Much love and appreciation to the Academy. I hope we can meet again. Makes me want to cry a little bit. So ultimately he did apologize, and I actually think, I feel like I've made myself the official armchair police of apologizers. Like I sort of like to review apologies and give them a grade essentially. And I feel like ultimately his final apology there was pretty good. I mean, he sincerely apologizes to the LGBTQ community for my insensitive words from my past. He didn't just say for hurting your feelings. He said for the words. I apologize for the words. That's pretty straight up. And then he went on to say, I'm sorry that I hurt people. He talked about his own evolution. He talked about his goal of trying to bring people together, and he didn't hold anything against the Academy. I mean, I feel like that was pretty good. I only wish that he had been able to do that first. And this, by the way, my friends, is one of the problems with social media on the whole. It's the problem our president has. It's the problem many people who have found themselves in trouble after bad tweets have had, which is this instantaneousness of it. This lack of filter between you and your fingers or your video camera and your mouth. In the old days, I think, we've been talking, especially in the aftermath of losing George Herbert Walker Bush, about this, previous time of decorum. Part of the reason is not because we were nicer and more polite then. It's because we didn't have social media. I am sure there were moments, probably not, because, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, so I'll pick somebody else to pick on. But I'm sure there were moments in many presidents' lives in the pre-social media era where they wanted to fly off the handle and might have, had they had a Twitter feed, had they had a Twitter account, And same thing with celebrities. I'm sure there were many celebrities back in the day who had no filter, and had they had Instagram, might have gotten themselves in far more trouble than they did. That said, we live in this era now with social media, and I like Kevin Hart a lot, and I wish that he would have just done that last thing first. That's all. But I want to know what you think of his frustration, because I think the frustration he expressed in that Instagram is also, by the way, I think legitimate. He needed to apologize. His words from 10 years ago were ugly. Period. He needed to apologize. And I don't care that he's apologized before. He needed to do it again. It was called out in this moment of him getting this huge job in Hollywood, this very visible job. And he could have, as the woman from GLAAD said, put the whole thing to bed by just apologizing again and saying, I hate that I have to keep rehashing this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm very sorry for my insensitive words. I'm hoping this is the last time we'll have to rehash it. Like that would have been okay to express some frustration, include a sincere apology, and move on. And, or maybe not, or maybe don't even include the frustration. But I do understand the frustration, because this, in some ways, to me, is not unlike these random people who are spending time digging through Baby It's Cold Outside to find, the date rape message in it, and digging through, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to find the, mean-spiritedness of it, or whatever, the misogynistic, come on. Like, there's a point at which the past is the past. And I don't like comments that are anti-LGBTQ. I don't like comments that are racist. I don't like misogynistic words, comments, deeds, etc. But I also understand that people say things in different eras, in different times, or they just say them out of ignorance. They don't know. They don't realize they're making a mistake. And maybe sometimes we should give people the benefit of the doubt instead of always assuming that it's ugly. And being so ready to be, as we talked about yesterday with Dr. Huber, outraged. Why are we always ready to be so outraged all the time? So, and I actually think it's a little, I don't know what the right word is exactly, poignant, that Sarah Kate Ellis, who spoke as the president and CEO of GLAAD, and I listened to her whole interview. We just played a little tiny bit of it for you, but she actually seemed kind of sad about the whole thing. I think she didn't want him to step away, and she again, he could have done the apology up front. He could have uh, done some bit on stage, as we've seen many of them do, that refers to current events or some situation that they themselves have been in. And he could have had fun with it. I mean, he could have brought a couple of famously gay actors on stage and had some fun with it. I don't know. Get somebody who knows whether or not it's okay, and make sure you don't make another tasteless mistake. But find a way to, as they suggested, as Sarah suggested, making it a teachable moment, and maybe having some fun with it. Maybe having a discussion with the Kevin of the past and the Kevin of now, or something. I don't know. Anyway, I do think it's unfortunate because I do think he's really funny, and I think it would have been a good show.
I think, though, him stepping away, while it is disappointing that he's not able to get up on stage and make that kind of message, I think in the line of his apology, he makes a great point. I don't want to be a distraction on that night, because even if he did properly apologize, and even if he then, the first thing out of his mouth at the Oscars was, "I'm sorry," and then the whole night he was focused on trying to make that right, you're still going to have really loud voices screaming about the fact that this gay hater can't be on stage.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what he does. There will be those people that just cannot forgive him for whatever reason, and he didn't want to pull away from the Oscars with that.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I think you're making a point, and I think he has a valid point now. He let it. I still think that if he had handled it differently and had apologized right away, that maybe that would not have been the case. Like, I think people would have been willing to accept his apology, especially if someone like the president of GLAAD had come out and said, "You know what? That's fine. We respect him. We appreciate his apology," and then that was that. But I don't disagree with you now. I mean, at this point, it's already, even just in 2 days, it already bubbled up into enough people that are upset that, you may be right. And look, I always try to put myself in these kind of situations. A couple of years ago, many years ago now, I think Mel Gibson made some anti-Semitic remarks. And let's be honest, I have not really forgiven him for that. And I wouldn't like to see him host the Oscars, even if he apologized. So there's always going to be haters. And apparently when it comes to Mel Gibson, I'm one of them. Sorry, I just admitted it.